Okay, so here we go, Mouseketeers. Like and subscribe, you know the drill. If you don't do it, hope somebody pees in your Wheaties. I think, oh man, I gotta be honest, some of the emails I'm getting are kind of disturbing. I think some of y'all, I think you're really praying for Armageddon and the end of the world, and that deeply disturbs me. And if it doesn't disturb you, it should. I can guarantee you, just by reading, seeing the rage in the writing, you can tell if you've done enough studying of, psychology and handwriting and everything, you can tell when the story starts, or I would say the narrative, for lack of a better term, starts in an email, and how it goes to anger and misspell. It starts out very eloquent, and it goes into anger and rage, and then all of a sudden there's run-on sentences and excessive capitalization and no punctuation. And I imagine people breaking keyboards while they're typing this stuff. I really do see a lot of issues with this, and I see a lot of issues with the very thought that people think that Armageddon is going to be the answer to their miserable lives, rather than picking themselves up by their bootstraps and making things better with the power they already have. They think they're going to fix their life through firepower and more MREs than you can count in a day, and that's not the way it works. So I did some reaching into psychology of these kind of people. The mindset. Some of it's so disturbing, I'm not going to include it. And if this involves anybody, if this issue applies to anyone, where you're sitting there counting your knives and your bullets, getting ready for the nuclear apocalypse, I want you to get some help. If you listen to this and you like what I say and you trust what I say, I really want you to get some help, because you shouldn't be praying for this. There's nothing wrong with planning for it, as long as you're not planning for what you think is going to happen, or somehow if you get to nuclear football, if it drops out of Air Force One or something, you want to spin the keys because you want to blow everything up. And for those of you that don't know what the nuclear football is, look it up. I'm not going to explain it. But I know, just reading some of this shit, some of these crazy-ass emails I get, I really know that some of these people are really praying for the apocalypse, praying for Armageddon. So I typed something up, and again, I'm sorry, I don't type like I talk. Bear with me. You're going to know it's from me when you hear it, but at the same time, it's the best way I know it. This isn't something to really joke about. I added some humor to it because some of the stuff was so bad, I had to make a joke out of it. So just bear with me. I'm going to read you something about this, the thing I typed up, but I need you to understand that I'm not an expert. I could be wrong about some of this. But I probably am. I'm wrong about a lot of things. But I'm asking you people, and I'm praying, honest to God, praying for you people. You need some help if this is what you want. I want you to listen to this and think about how crazy it is, and then I want you to think about what you can do to better your life without setting a city on fire. And again, I see no problem with preparing. I see no problem with getting ready. We all have car insurance. We're not going to get in a wreck. We don't think we're going to get in a wreck, but it's there because the odds say we're going to get in a wreck. We got to pay that money every month. You probably pay renter's insurance. You don't want your house to burn. You don't want that to happen, but you got to pay insurance. I just look at prepping like insurance for the future. You're going to get what you pay for, just like with regular insurance. If it never happens, you got a room full of guns and MREs. If it does happen, you might make it. So that's a different kind of prepper. The ones I'm talking about right now are the preppers that pray for Armageddon. So let's go over the psychology of people who pray for Armageddon a little bit. And like I said, it's not a lot, and I could be wrong about some of this, but this was what I came to after reading about I think it was 7 different articles. You got to know that there's people very concerned about this and worried about people like this, so take it with a grain of salt. The psychology of people who pray for Armageddon. The psychology of people who actively hope and pray for Armageddon is fascinating subject because it requires us to answer a seemingly simple question. Why would someone look at the entire human race and think, you know what? You know what this needs? A grand finale. To be fair, not everyone who believes in end of times prophecies wants catastrophe. Many people simply believe certain events will happen and do not celebrate the prospect of suffering. However, there is a subset of people who appear almost enthusiastic about the collapse of civilization, and the psychology offers a few clues as to why. One factor is the desire for certainty. The modern world is complicated, messy, full of ambiguity. Nobody knows exactly what will happen next year, next month, or sometimes even next Tuesday. I mean, think about it. We've been told the war is going to be over shortly for how long in Iran, and it keeps going another week and another week and another week and another week. We got to trust in the powers to be, but, this is the same thing. For some people, an apocalyptic narrative solves this problem beautifully. Suddenly, history has a script, current events have a purpose, and every confusing headline can be filed under part of the plan. Yes, I will agree. Armageddon will bring about an end of script. It will be a reset. But it's not what we're hoping for. It's not what we're praying for. God, people, get your shit together. It's a horrible thing to want that to happen. I mean, after all, uncertainty is stressful. Predicting the imminent end of civilization every year for 40 years may not be accurate, but at least it's consistent. That's right. There are a lot of people that are thinking every year at the end of the year, oh, here comes New Year's, this is going to be it, or here comes April, whatever the Aztec or the Mayan calendar said we're all going to die. These people look forward to this stuff, and I need you to be extremely aware of these people and avoid them at all costs. They're going to take you down. So another factor is the desire for significance. Most people live relatively ordinary lives. They go to work, pay bills, take out the trash, and occasionally spend 20 minutes searching for a phone that turns out to be in their other hand. An apocalyptic worldview transforms ordinary life into a cosmic drama. Instead of living through another random century, you are living through the century. Instead of reading news, you are decoding history itself. This can be emotionally appealing because I am witnessing the culmination of a divine plan. That just, for people that don't know culminating, I apologize. That just basically means I am witnessing the creation of a new plan. How's that? This feels considerably more exciting than I have a dentist appointment on Thursday. Group identity also plays an important role. Hold on, coffee time. Oh my God, that's good coffee. Holy shit. Let me redo that last one. Group identity also plays an important role. Human beings like belonging to communities, and communities often strengthen themselves through shared beliefs. If a group believes it possesses a special insight to the future, members may feel a sense of exclusivity and purpose. That's unfortunate, but that's true. There is a certain psychological satisfaction in believing you have figured out what billions of other people in the world have somehow missed, which you gotta admit, whether you're a psychotic prepper, a calm prepper, a quiet prepper, it's true for pretty much all of us. We can't point a finger at one group for that thought process. We do think we have it figured out, and that's why we're spending crazy money on bullets, beans, and Band-Aids. The list of people, history suggests caution at this point. The list of people who confidently predict the exact timing of the end of the world is very long. Yes, it is. The list of people who were correct remains stubbornly short. In fact, it is currently undefeated by 0. Everyone, Aztecs, maybe it was the Mayans. I think it was the Mayan calendar. I know there were a lot of people that thought that was going to happen. I mean, look at when we hit the year 2000. I mean, some of you are too young to know it or remember it, but people were actually freaking out that planes were going to fall out of the sky when we hit 2000, because a lot of the older computers were not set to go past 2000 for the date, and they thought the computers would shut down. They didn't know what would happen. And I can admit, the company I was working for, I was doing corporate security. And I'm going to tell you something. Everybody knows this company. It's a really large car insurance company. And let's just say, when 2000 came, their flow was discombobulated. They prepared like it was going to be Armageddon. They had triple redundancy for all their computers, everything. Their data was stored. Some of it was taken off site, and it was treated like it was bars of gold. It's the reason they created all their data centers, I believe. But that's not the point. The thing is, this company, no bullshit, spent millions of dollars preparing for something that some of us wasn't even worried about. Some of us was not worried about. I don't know, whatever the proper English is. But there were people in charge, in control, making millions of dollars a year that really thought everything was going to crash. Or they were willing to step off the pier and spend millions of dollars to cover this if it happened. I know the company I worked for wasn't the only company that did it, because I was making calls to friends in my same role at other companies, asking them what they were going to do. And I would say if I called 5 people, 4 out of the 5, their company was doing the same thing we did. So let's move on. Another psychological factor is the need for control. This may sound strange, because the apocalypse appears to be like, it appears to involve losing control of absolutely everything. However, people often find comfort in believing that frightening events are part of an ordered plan rather than random chaos. Think about it. Unless there's some like evil supervillain, some James Bond supervillain, cataclysmic events, chaos, all that shit, there's no grand plan in that. There's nobody driving, the chariot that guy caused all that. There might have been somebody pushing a button somewhere making it happen, but once it happens, there is no control. Nobody has control. A difficult world can feel more manageable if one believes there is a cosmic explanation behind it. Psychologically speaking, oh, there you go. I had an extra yawn. Many people prefer a frightening answer to no answer at all. They would rather be scared out of their minds, knowing that the skin's going to get ripped off their face, than someone saying, yeah, I really don't know. It's crazy. This is psychology. I'm telling you, you could read about this for days. I'm encapsulating a shit ton of stuff that I read here. So bear with me. I'm just trying to make a point. At least the frightening answer comes with a flow chart. They can tell you, well, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, we're going to run out of supplies here, we're going to run out of food here. Yes, it's controlled, it's what people want. They want, that control. They would rather have that control, knowing that no matter how far down you go in the flow chart, it's going to end in disaster, utter and total disaster, and end of breathing and living, and that you're going to be unalived at the very end of the flow chart, rather than going at it with hope for the future. Yes, we survived. They survived. Look, there's more people that survived. We got to make it better. They would rather go with a crazy ass, this is what's going to happen, and we're all going to die. Many people who fantasize about civilization imagine themselves thriving afterwards. These are confused people. These same confused people think they're right, because when they look at the future, they never see themselves standing in line for emergency supplies, because they have them already, which means they have a step up on everything, which gives them that sense of superiority and control. They're never the people that forgot where they put their flashlight, because they have 20 of them or 30 of them, one on every table, window, bathroom, toilet. There's flashlights everywhere. They don't forget them, because they don't have to remember where they are. They just close their eyes and reach out, and they probably hit one. They're never the individual who discovers that watching survival videos and surviving are not identical activities. They are not. They think it's that surviving the apocalypse is the same thing, and it is not. Instead, they picture themselves becoming wise leaders, rugged pioneers, or legendary survivors. These are people that haven't gone in the woods since they were 8 years old because they got poison ivy, and they're scared of the woods. But God knows they bought enough gear to fight through a nuclear disaster. Gear doesn't equal skill. I've said it so many times. These people really have these false visions of grandeur. Like I said a while ago, I don't know what podcast it was, but I said they picture themselves standing on top of the mountain, waving their own personal flag for their new civilization, with beautiful girls hanging on their legs and clutching on their legs. And they're standing there like the Marines, raising the flag. And that's what they see in their heads. They don't understand that they're going to be so beat up, and the woods and nature is going to kick the shit out of them so hard, they're probably going to just be crawling to the bathroom. Because they can't walk anymore. They're so defeated that it's scary how they see this stuff in their head, and they're cheering for it because in their mind it's a better life than what they have. And the truth of the matter is, it's never going to be anywhere near where they think it's going to be. The reason for this is human imagination has always been remarkably generous to itself. The final factor is something psychologists sometimes call motivated reasoning. This is some deep shit. People often notice information that supports what they already believe and ignore what they don't believe. They only believe what they believe. And you see this with and I'm not getting political, but you see this with Trump derangement syndrome. These people, wherever they work, the largest group of people or the people they hang out with decide they don't like Trump, and now everybody jumps on board. There's a lot of things about Trump I don't like, but he did more in 9 months than any other president did in 4 years. But these people hate him, and they refuse to acknowledge anything good he's done. Everything he does, they call out, he needs to be, investigated, he needs to be impeached, blah, 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 failing to realize how he's making things better. He's still got 3 years. The jury's still out, but for me, I think he's the right choice. I don't think he's a great guy. I wouldn't have him to dinner, but he's the right choice for president. But these people that have this Trump derangement syndrome refuse to see anything good, and they don't even know what's going on. I mean, you see people getting interviewed, and they say, oh, well, he said this, and then they find out, no, that wasn't Trump, that was Biden, 4 years ago, that was Biden said that. I say, well, what about this and this? They say, no, they've never done that, but Kamala Harris did it for 4 years when she was the prosecuting attorney. Trump has never done that. They don't hear them saying the Democrats did it. All they hear is Trump did it. And it's scary as hell. I'm telling you, to me, people with that mindset are scarier than, pretty much anything you're going to encounter on the street. If someone is convinced Armageddon is imminent, every war becomes evidence. Every recession becomes evidence. Every natural disaster becomes evidence. Every unusual event becomes evidence. At some point, a squirrel crossing the road at a usual angle risks becoming evidence. The result is a worldview in which history appears to be constantly confirming itself. The irony is that nearly every generation has found reasons to believe it was they were living in the final chapter of history. Ancient civilizations believed it. Medieval societies believed it. People believed it during world wars, economic crises, pandemics, and other countless periods of upheaval. Humanity has spent thousands of years standing beside the exit door announcing that departure is imminent. So far, history has shown a remarkable reluctance to cooperate. Ultimately, psychology behind hoping for Armageddon is often less about destruction itself and more about meaning certainty. This is a big one: significance and belonging and control. They are deeply human needs. They don't have them in real life. That's why, as they're stacking their weapons in the corner, they're talking to themselves, because they don't have anybody else to talk about. It's a deep human need for belonging and control and even significance, and they don't have it. They're loners. They've been shut out at work or at home or from their family, or maybe they don't have anybody left in their family and something happened at work, and all of a sudden people that 5 years ago were fun at a party are now withdrawn and dark and sitting in the corner trying to decide which person they want to take out first if an EMP is announced. these people are dangerous. That's all I'm getting at, okay? The problem arises when the desire for dramatic ending becomes stronger than the desire for human flourishing in life. Because while it may be emotionally satisfying to imagine yourself starring in the final act of history, there's an obvious downside. The final act of history contains an alarming number of people who would very much prefer there not be a final act in history. And from their perspective, I hope civilization collapses is a strange solution to civilization's problems. It's roughly the equivalent to solving a leaky roof by setting the house on fire. Decisive, it's certainly decisive, but perhaps not optimal. Why would you set a house on fire if it has a leaky roof? But this is in direct proportion to people hoping for the end of civilization because they got a box of guns. There's a very specific kind of person who wakes up every morning, checks the news, and reacts to every tragedy like a sports fan whose team just scored. War breaks out somewhere. That's very interesting to them. Economic problems emerge worldwide. Okay, this is promising. They're thinking this is promising. It might be coming. Natural disasters. Oh, now we're getting somewhere because, they see, cities getting wiped out by tsunamis and stuff. At some point, you want to pull these people aside and ask, did you hear yourself? Probably smack them a few times, But I don't know. Maybe that would bring them back to reality. Maybe it wouldn't, but it would sure feel good if these people were hoping for the end of the world. Because most people see suffering and think, how do we reduce that? Armageddon enthusiasts see suffering and thinks, this could be episode 7 of season 12 of the end of my cinematic universe. It's dark. They're dark people. These people treat human misery the way birdwatchers treat rare sightings. Look, a geopolitical crisis. I haven't seen one of those in months. They keep one eye on the headlines and the other eye on prophetic bingo card. Their card doesn't have bingo. It's going to have famine, check, conflict, economically unstable, locust swarms, and they're very optimistic they're going to win the game of bingo. Yeah, I'm sorry. That one was I typed it and I thought it made sense, but that one might have been a little rough. Basically, famine, conflict, economic instability, locusts. Those are all the bingo squares, and they're playing bingo, and they went. It made sense in my head. They're almost weirdly optimistic about how they think this stuff's going to happen. And, they also know that you don't have to have all of them to play bingo. You can just hit half of them and you can still get bingo. So I'm just trying to explain the mindset, and I took this from a lot of stuff, and I'm trying to dumb it down to where I really understand it, and I hope that I'm not dumbing it down too much, but it's very hard to understand when you start really drilling down into this mindset. In fact, that's one of the strangest things about apocalyptic enthusiasts. They're often described as doomers. They're not doomers. They're cheerleaders. Actual doomers think things are getting worse. They don't think it's coming to an end. These people think things are getting worse, and they're thrilled about it. That's a completely different hobby. A doomer says we're in trouble. An apocalypse fan says we're in trouble. This is fantastic. One of those reactions is concerning. The other should probably come with a referral to a therapist. The funniest part of how confidently some people imagine themselves starring in the collapse of civilization. They really think they're going to be out in front. They're going to be leading the pack. In their minds, they're always the rugged survivor, the visionary, the prepared one, the chosen one. The person standing on the hill, like I said, beautiful girls on both legs waving their flag while off in the distance a burning city is glowing at night and dramatic music is playing. Nobody ever imagines the more realistic version. Nobody pictures themselves desperately trying to remember where they left their glasses. Nobody pictures themselves arguing with a generator manual. Nobody imagines spending 6 hours looking for toilet paper. Nobody imagines discovering that owning 17 tactical knives does not automatically grant expertise in agriculture. The fantasy is always, I shall become a legendary post-apocalyptic leader. The reality is, I accidentally locked myself out of the bunker. Let's discuss bunker people for a moment. Not ordinary preparedness. Preparedness is sensible. Having emergency supplies is normal. Owning a flashlight is not a personality disorder. The people we're discussing have transformed preparedness into a lifestyle brand. Their basement looks like a sporting goods store at a nervous breakdown. There's enough freeze-dried meal to feed a medium-sized kingdom. Enough ammunition to propel 3 separate invasions. Enough water filters to purify the Pacific Ocean. What there's not enough of is perspective. You ask them, so what's the end goal? They explain that after civilization collapses, they will finally thrive. This is fascinating. They currently struggle to answer emails, but after global infrastructure fails, they will apparently become wilderness demigods. It's a remarkable transformation. Clark Kent becomes Superman, Bruce Wayne becomes Batman, and Steve from accounting becomes Warlord of Sector 7. Another thing that's funny about the apocalypse enthusiasts is how they talk about humanity. They often describe civilization. Hold on, coffee. Oh my God, that's good. They often describe civilization as though it's a failed restaurant. This whole thing needs to be shut down. Really? The whole thing, huh? Every hospital, every school, every family, every scientific library, every orchestra, every library in general, every playground, every community, every friendship. And because you've decided history needs a dramatic seasonal finale, that seems excessive. Excuse me. It's like burning down your house because the Wi-Fi was slow. A lot of people are addicted to significance. That's really what's happening. The apocalypse isn't attractive because it's terrible. It's attractive because it's important. They don't want Tuesday. They want destiny. They don't want an ordinary life. They want a cosmic level of relevance. The problem is that ordinary life is where almost all the good stuff happens. Friendships happen there. Love happens there. Families happen there. Art happens there. Music happens there. Discovery happens there. Children grow up there. Communities improve there. And we all pray to God for a better tomorrow. The apocalypse crowd is so obsessed with the final chapter that they forget to read the Bible and the book. Imagine being so committed to the ending that you stopped caring about the story. Imagine watching a movie and spending the entire runtime screaming, skip to the explosion. They see that relationships are forming. They scream, skip to the explosion. People are learning and growing. They seem, skip to the tidal wave. Eventually, security escorts that person from the theater, and this is the correct action. Get them out of general society. There are people I know that they wouldn't do it in a movie theater probably, but I bet you my ass is sitting at home. They'd be saying, what's going on? I don't want to see people learning how to farm. I want to see the gunfight. One of the strangest habits among Armageddon fans is their ability to reinterpret every event as evidence. Anything happens. Anything. A drought, a flood, an election, a recession, a technological breakdown, a celebrity haircut. Immediately they're thinking it's interesting. This could be something. This is a cover-up. No event is too small. No coincidence is too coincidental. No pattern too imaginary. At a certain point, they're basically conspiracy theorists with the calendar. Every year they're convinced they're living in the final chapter. Every year the chapter somehow keeps getting extended. The apocalypse has become the longest-running farewell tour in history. It's the world's oldest limited-time event. Well, what really deserves criticism isn't preparedness. It's faith. It isn't spirituality. It's the willingness to become emotionally invested in the catastrophe, because catastrophe is not exciting when it arrives. It's devastating. Real wars aren't movie scenes. Real families aren't aren't plot devices. Real disasters aren't prophecy props. They're experiences endured by actual people through pain and suffering. When people start rooting for the collapse, they begin treating suffering as scenery. And that's where the mindset becomes ugly. Human beings stop being human beings. They become supporting actors in somebody else's grand narrative. The irony is that people hoping for civilization's destruction benefit enormously from civilization. They're posting online using a global communication infrastructure, the internet, World Wide Web. They're discussing the collapse of society while enjoying products of its society. Yeah, they just got home from the grocery store and they're tearing into a bag of pork rinds. You're not going to get pork rinds after the end of society. Predicting the end of technology using technology. That's one of my favorites. They're spreading the word of the end of times using the greatest technological advancement the world's ever seen. It's incredible. They're predicting the end of commerce after ordering survival gear and pizza on the internet. They're predicting the end of civilization from a climate-controlled room built by civilization, sitting in their bedroom on the computer, air conditioning on. It's a bit like standing on a cruise ship and yelling, "This vessel is terrible, I hope it sinks," while they're on board. Of course, everyone else on board that heard it is getting very nervous. and let's talk about the fantasy that everything would magically become simpler. This idea consistently appears in these fantasies for people. Some people imagine that civilization will actually become more authentic and, what do you want to say it, structured around them because they got all the gear. Nothing says authentic like dysentery. Nothing says spiritual renewal like preventable disease. Nothing says personal growth like desperately searching for antibiotics that you're never going to find because you didn't think about antibiotics, you thought about hollow-tip bullets. History contains many lessons. One of the most important is that modern convenience became popular for reasons. People didn't invent the indoor plumbing because they hated adventure. There's also an incredible amount of arrogance involved. To root for Armageddon is to assume that billions of people's futures and the end of them is acceptable collateral damage for your preferred narrative. That's an astonishing position. To think that the billions of people are going to die is what it's going to take for you to be where you want to be. That's what this all boils down to. That's what this whole thing boils down to. And they're going to counter with, well, I don't want everyone to die. It's just going to happen to some. No. We get hit with the MPs. We're going to lose, what do they say, 66% of civilization within the first 30 days. I believe that. I truly believe that. This is what these people are hoping for. That's the thing they somehow block out when they think about standing on that mountain with the flag. Man, it's apocalypse enthusiasts somehow hear it and think this is exactly what I'm talking about. This is what I want. This is the end of civilization. This is what I need to thrive. It's frightening, honestly frightening. The greatest achievement of humanity has never been emerged from hoping everything falls apart. These achievements of humanity have emerged from the opposite impulse. They desire to build, to heal, to learn, to improve, to create. Civilization exists because generation after generation looked at chaos and said, let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that suffering. Let's fix this. The apocalypse crowd looks at chaos and says, can we get more of it? They're only suffering on this side. Everybody needs to suffer outside my bunker. One of those approaches that created the lack of chaos is the approach that built hospitals. But you got another one that rather than building something good is only focused on collecting beans and YouTube predictions. If you genuinely care about humanity, root for humanity, root for cures, root for education, peace, scientific discovery, prosperity, fewer disasters, not more, and for a future worth living in for everyone, not just you. If you are at the point where you truly are hoping for Armageddon, it's something you're doing wrong. It's something hurt you, something scarred you, and you went down the wrong path to fix what was wrong. You took that disdain towards you and you turned it into hate for everyone when it's the worst thing you can do. And if you're the person that's rooting for Armageddon, you can't say you don't hate everyone, you don't want everyone to die, because for Armageddon to come, billions are going to die. You're hoping for that. No matter how you look at saying, I'm going to be the guy on the mountain with the flag, for you to get on top of that mountain with the flag, millions and billions of people would have to die. It's pathetic. If your vision of a better future begins with eliminating the future, there may be a flaw in the plan, a very large flaw, possibly the largest flaw available, the sort of flaw that's visible from space, the sort of flaw that survives every bunker, every prophecy, every survival form, and every dramatic prediction. The flaw is simple. You think people don't matter. You think their lives don't matter. You think their futures don't matter. And any worldview that turns human suffering into entertaining and self-fulfillment deserves all the mockery it receives. People preferably delivered with extreme prejudice, relentless sarcasm, and absolutely no invitation to the bunker. I'm telling you guys, you hate people because, they got you figured out. They're pointing a finger at you. You think they teased you before, and now that you're a self-proclaimed prepper and expert in everything, and you're wearing, camis to work, and you're wearing a knife that everybody knows is there, but you're trying to cover up even though there's a no weapons policy at work, and you can't get in your car right away because the MREs are slipping over from the passenger seat and the back seat. You got to move shit to get in the car. Yeah, y'all need help. I really pray for you. You guys need help. I got nothing else to say about this right now. I might do another one later. I got a lot more. I just think that's enough for now. Y'all better start praying. You better start praying. Y'all watch your six and peace out.